Imagine being really good at what you do, highly effective, successful, you're proud of your work, but you're overshadowed by someone who does it not just a little bit better, but a lot better. Why is this important? Because I'm talking about the stock AMD and how it is often overshadowed by Nvidia, but how it could be set up to make a huge run. All that and more in today's video. Let's go. Welcome back to Courage Pays Better Than Fear Trading. Your host here, Jeremy Ritz, diving into some more chart analysis. And today we're going to be talking about AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, or as some people affectionately call it out there in the social media world, Advanced Money Destroyer. And we'll talk about that here in a bit. But recently, there's been some growing optimism following what has been a dark cloud hanging over the company for some time. And for those of you who don't know, AMD makes chips. They're in the semiconductor industry. And yes, they are overshadowed by big brother Nvidia. And Nvidia gets a lot of attention on this channel. But I want to talk about whether or not AMD could be poised for a breakout, or are there risks that you need to be aware of? And we're going to get into all that. But I want to start by talking about some key things that could be a reason for optimism moving forward, and also some things that potentially could continue to hold this stock back before we take a look at the chart. First up, I want to talk about something I discussed on a short earlier this week, and that's that billionaire investor Ken Griffin, the mastermind behind Citadel, just made a significant investment in AMD, and he actually cut his stake in Nvidia by 50%. And he added $326 million to AMD. And that's pretty significant because typically most investors look at AMD as a company that's not even a rival to Nvidia. So this is a bold pivot, and it signals that there is some growing confidence in AMD's chip potential. And this move aligns with UBS analysts who are excited about AMD's AI roadmap. And they're citing growing traction with US cloud giants like Microsoft and Meta. And when a hedge fund legend like Griffin gets involved, it's a sign that Wall Street insiders see AMD as a contender. And the optimism doesn't stop there. AMD's data center revenues skyrocketed 60% year over year last quarter, fueled by its MI300 AI chips, which, get this, boast 1.6 times the bandwidth and 2.4 times the memory of NVIDIA's H100s. Social media posts are buzzing about AMD's $10 billion deal with Saudi Arabia's Humane to deploy 500 megawatts of AI infrastructure using AMD's Instinct GPUs and EPYC CPUs. Plus, Amazon's $85 million investment in AMD and partnerships with Meta and Microsoft for AI workloads show that AMD is gaining ground in the AI race. And people are calling it, and this is quite interesting, being that there has been such a dark cloud hanging over this company, but recently been calling it a momentum monster. And I'm sure those of you out there who know AMD as Advanced Money Destroyer find that a bit ironic. But then there's also buybacks and earnings strength, and AMD is flexing its financial muscles. They recently announced a $6 billion share buyback program, bringing their total repurchase power to $10 billion. And that's a vote of confidence in their future. And when you look at their quarter one earnings, they crushed it. Revenue up 36% to $7.4 billion, and an earnings per share beat. And you have analysts who are raising price targets upwards to 130, which is well off their all-time highs, I know. But you do have some forecasters seeing AMD hit $200 by the year end. And with a forward PE of 25 compared to NVIDIA's 27, AMD definitely looks like a value play in the chip space. But let's not pretend. There are red flags. Just go look at the chart from what it has done over the past year. And the stock is down 6% year to date and 32% since May of 2024. And it lags the broader semiconductor index. The gaming and embedded segments are dragging, and there are cyclical declines hurting overall growth. And then you factor in US chip export curbs to China and how that can impact revenue. And it's definitely a concern for investors. And I mentioned this at the outset. Let's not forget about the bully on the playground, Nvidia, and their dominance on the chip market. AMD, regardless of the optimism or the excitement about new things happening, is still playing catch up. So now let's hop over to a chart and take a look at where we are and where potentially AMD can go. So let's start here by looking at AMD's all-time high up here at 227.18. And this was made in March of 2024. And look at this candle that came in with it. It's a shooting star candle. And this is right at the top of that uptrend, and it signaled the breakdown. And you could see what followed from that is just a crumbling, a slow deterioration, and then capitulation down to a low of about $76 that came in there when the market bottomed on April 7th. And if we measure out that drop from the high to that low, that's a 66% decline and over $150 of value lost. So that's a significant move, especially when you consider that this entire bull run was sparked on by AI from Nvidia when you go back to May of 2023. And even now, where we are with the price action, we are at price levels where we were back in 2023. So when taking a look at what potentially could be a value play, AMD is it. And you can see that on the way down, AMD made lower highs. And after this second lower high made here in October of this past year, when the stock price was, let's see, this was at 174, it really just started dropping, retesting, dropping again, retesting, and just stair stepping down until, again, it hit that low of about $76. And the entire market bottomed around that same time. We found some support. Buyers stepped in. You could see an uptick in that bullish volume. And we have slowly grinded out of that position. And like we saw on a lot of tickers after that bottom was made, we do have a double bottom pattern coming into play here, a lower low double bottom. Here's the neckline. And you could see that AMD consolidated around that area for a few days before getting a push higher. And what is significant when looking at these moving averages is it finally got a close above that 100 simple moving average on the daily, which is the first time that has happened. That is a bearish signal. But notice there are still lots of moving averages above AMD that it's going to have to fight through in order to continue to press higher. And you can see right now, as of today, we're stuck on this 50 simple moving average on the monthly, and we have that 200 on the weekly above us, which we did press through, but got rejected by the 200 daily exponential moving average. And so if we're able to get a strong close above this, then the next likely target here on AMD will be that 126 area. And what we want to keep in mind too is we have Nvidia earnings coming up next week, and that will be on the 28th. So there could be a sympathy play that comes out of that. Let's say that Nvidia crushes it and they have a great forecast. They're very positive about the future of AI, about chips. That's going to naturally lift AMD. And then we could see potentially that 200 simple moving average on the daily get hit or possibly even broken through. Get a big bull run. We have to get through this 50 on the weekly and the 100 on the weekly. And then that would put it above all of its moving averages. And that hasn't happened for quite some time. And the last time that it was above all of its moving average, we would have to go back to December of 2023. And that happened right in this area. And you could see what followed was a massive move higher. So keep an eye on AMD. Keep an eye on what happens with Nvidia earnings. If it can somehow get above all of those moving averages, retest, pull back, move sideways for a bit, and then maybe it could start ascending back up to, who knows if it'll get back up to those all-time highs anytime soon, but start making newer highs. And then watch those recent highs, those lower highs that were made after the all-time high as points of resistance. And if this were to drop, let's say that we get some weakness that comes into the market, if it starts to fall again, we do have those moving averages below us, the 100 and the 50, that would act as support. But you would have to think, as beat up as AMD is, if it does come back down and breaks through all of those, this bottom that was made in April, this was on April 8th, that this should serve as a support. So if it were to come back down here, we get tariff news, it should find a bounce here at that 76 area. And if it doesn't, if it would take that out, then we would be needing to look at other supports and come back to this January of 2023, which would be about 60-20. And we'll actually put that in a range between 54 and 60 would be that next bouncing area we'd be looking for. What does it all mean? Right now, we're smack dab in between all those moving averages, but AMD has reclaimed that 100, which it's taken a long time for it to do it. It's above that 50 on the monthly, and it does have some resistance overhead, but if it's able to push through that, it does have some room to run. So what are your thoughts? What is going to happen with AMD over the next several months to a year? Are you bullish on the stock? Are you bearish? Let me know down in the comments. And is there a ticker you'd like me to analyze? Let me know. I'll see you back here on the next video.